Good day. This topic is on in the presence of a narcissist. In the presence of a narcissist. Have you ever met people and you don't know what it is? You just the first few impressions you have, as soon as you walk into their presence, you've already come to some level of conclusion. And that first 2, 3 seconds and 5 seconds of that initial meeting is what the tone that will be set for the rest of the relationship. Now, the rest of the relationship will basically be experience. And I mean, it's been said that people who've had things happen to them, they said, at the beginning of all this, I saw it, and I didn't want to believe it. And the signs were there. Some people have referred to it as the red flags, right? Everyone has their own, getting back to when I say everyone is unique. The way they've been birthed, the things that happen upon them when they are the initial place as a little baby, and those two eyes looking at them, or those four eyes, whether it be eyes of love or eyes of expectation or eyes of regret. Who knows what? As one, I think it's Cream, the rock group, wrote that song, "Born Under a Bad Sign," and for other people, born under a good sign. Like those first initial time frames of your life set so much of a captivator as to the rest of it. And the majority of the times, people will spend their life trying to find answers based upon those few little snippets that is the basis of everything else that will happen in their life. Everything else. Because the impression was so strong. Now, the thing is that when you are in the presence of a narcissist, and that term narcissist, I mean, it's a word that's been kind of exploded in a big way. There was a time when they were called psychopaths, they were called sociopaths, right? Antisocial. There was so many different words for these people because what it came down to, there were people who didn't operate in a normal sense of the word. They were very good at hiding what they can do and the damage and the harm they can cause. And no one really goes through their life placing any attention that somebody can actually really intentionally try to hurt another person. Because it doesn't compute up here. How is that possible? How is that possible? I mean, especially when we live in a world that is fairly safe, that people don't have to go about in their life wanting to do harm to other people when there's so much available for them to be happy. It doesn't make sense, but that's who these people are. Whether they're wired that way, some people say it's something bad happened to them. Well, I don't buy that completely. Maybe yes and maybe no. I know psychologists on that. But I mean, I won't go too much into it. Man, I grew up in a family that, you had different brothers and sisters in the same conditions. Some turned out to be narcissists, others didn't, right? So I don't think that your upbringing can set a condition. It can help for a person to become a narcissist. I think there's certain decisions that people make inside of them because conscience is still real. The Bible even says that they have a conscience that have been seared, literally burned to the core and left a callous skin graft over it, a calloused, burned, seared conscience, right? There's no, they just decide, hey, this is the way I am, and this is how I'm going to operate in my life. Now, the one thing I discovered about being in the presence of a narcissist took me a while to figure this out. I found that every time that person was like in my presence, there's emanations that come off people. I mean, we carry the same. People call it the aura, your field, your life force, whatever it is, right? That I always found that I had the immediate, if not a very short time after, the strong desire to give them my stuff, to be totally nice to them, to go out of my way for them. And the interesting, when you're raised with a certain amount of the environment where you're really kind of validation, all these things are not very strong because your parents can't give it. It's nothing but forgiveness. You can really forgive your parents, especially because they were not equipped, they were not enabled, and for goodness sake, you were basically incubated by something broken. So you can't really expect much. There comes a point that you can forgive because the incubator was broken. The parent that you look at was broken. And for some reason, the buck, the dollar, whatever you want to call it, didn't fall on you. If for some reason it missed you, or maybe you made choices along the way. It can get a little complex. But when you're in a situation, any situation, you don't have time to be being pulling at the microscope and going into complexities of matter. You don't want to be there. You want to be able to avoid any situation that will make you make you become complex and messed up. Because life is supposed to be quite simple. It's supposed to be quite easy, quite simple. We get it. You learn things along the way, right? And the interesting thing, it took me a while to try to figure out why is it that I have such a desire to give to this person. Now, I took me a little while there, soul searching and praying and stuff like that, and I really believe that my eyes became open. That I obviously was trained by someone like that in close vicinity to me whilst I was growing up. And I'm not going to name who in my video, but I know who that person is. And it was a lot of little critical remarks, critiquing. Um, and on my side of things, my mode of survival was always trying to please, to be the peacemaker, to be oh, I'm such a nice person. Because they're busy trying to show you and tell you, no, you're not. You're basically screwed up like me. So you might as well get used to it. And yet your nature, whether it's God got control of you and he started to do some really amazing things inside of you, something so strong and so solid lived inside of you that no matter how much they try to convince you, you end up turning out differently. You end up always taking the high road. Now, here's the part about dealing with the narcissist. See, our situations from our past will show up in different bodies, different faces, different situations, same environment. It always comes back to it. And there you are. And it's it is I think it's only till really you're willing to see it and you're dealing with it, you begin to break, you begin to cut the ties. You begin to. The Bible even says that have the Spirit of God breaks the yoke of bondage. Right. Another thing too is that you begin to get out from it. You're breaking away from these invisible umbilical cord that has been feeding its own nutrients into your life, even though you're separated from it physically, spiritually, or soulishly, you're not. So there's a lot of stuff is pouring through your life. The medium, right? The medium it really is infecting your life consistently. And these situations keep showing up because you're but getting into the topic in the area of vibrations, right? And frequencies. You're tuned in to a specific type of environment, even though you're changing your life. These familiar things keep showing up because there's a familiarity about it. And it's so strong, so intense that you end up reacting and acting out way back. You see, the thing is about a person who grows into being more empathetic, sensitive, good nature, kind, and they do have a lot of, they don't try to control me. And because their sensitivity is so high, they always know, they always do. They have the uncanny ability to pick up a person's game. They know what people are about. They see beyond the surface. A person shows up with a tone, they start talking. I mean, I've had times in my life when a person starts talking, and I've had them figure out, even before they actually arrived, when they get into the presence, when they get into that place, it's like you enter into the ring with them, and the borders, you're inside, and that's when the real stuff begins to happen in the presence of a narcissist. Another thing that will happen with them, they will know you. You see, this whole world is controlled and dominated by demonic spirits and even the fallen angels, because as they fell, they became totally corrupted, and as they continually fell, they became more corrupted, and everything whose God's nature is, they became the complete opposite of. It's like light and darkness. And the Bible even says that there's no fellowship between light and darkness, none whatsoever. And another thing too with narcissists, that if you are a good natured person, trust who I'm talking to, is that they will enter into an interplay with you, a transaction, and you will never know what it is that they will force themselves on you. Why you? Why you? And why don't they leave other people alone? Because you got the goods. You see, as they've gotten older in their life, they come to realize the hardest thing about them, which is probably, I find, sad and detrimental, they refuse to admit that they're wrong. They really refuse it. And the very thing that could save them from themselves is the very thing they don't want to embrace. And here you are showing them. Even being with narcissists, they'll do a whole lot of crazy stuff with your transaction, your interaction with them. And you'll find yourself acting in a totally humble, sweet, good manner. You're willing to take part of the blame, even though it wasn't your fault. You're willing to find peace. You're willing to simply come to the table and let's discuss this. They're not like that. But what they see in you is what they don't have in themselves. And what they really want more than anything else, and this is the other part, when you're in their environment, and as soon as you're in their midst, you will sense something is starting to be taken from you. You'll feel it. You can't ever put it into words, but your being will go into a zone. It's like your body, when is sick, it will actually leave a lot of the healthy parts of your body alone and go after that sickness. That's why people when they get sick in bed and so forth. The immune system will shut down all these other parts of your body just so they can concentrate on that virus. And it knocks you out for a while, but it's good for you because it concentrates on healing that area, lest the infection should spread, right? The one thing that you learn in the presence of a narcissist, a sociopath, an antisocial, as years go by, is how they begin to shields up. And you begin to have fences. Now they will sense it. Now the thing is about what's really interesting, the more you begin to know, the more they become hip to you knowing what you know. And they will ramp up the aggression. And you will find who they really are, which is really good to you. Jesus says, you shall know the truth, and truth will set you free. In some respect, the harder the rampant upness is, the more you have to accept the fact that they are real, that you're not making excuses for who they are. You come to the realization that it's good. It is a good value to add to your life. You're willing to accept the truth that what you're dealing with is evil and it needs to be dealt with appropriately. A rejection, cutting off, moving away from, outrightly going cold is a good ability to have, even though you're an empath. It is a very good thing to have because you're not always like that. You've taken steps in that situation. That's when it's okay to do it. It's much okay, it's okay. And the most amazing thing about your transition from the narcissist as you move away from their presence, and they know at that point you're hip, they will also feel and sense that you have started to block them. You've literally started to change the dynamics of your energy, your force, your life force. And the next time someone else will show up with that same kind of information living inside of them, they'll be very careful around you. And then, it goes to the point too that is said about like attracts like. You'll find that you won't ever have too many problems with them. You won't notice them. You know why? Because the majority of life at some point you got compromised. And so when they show up, you start to notice them. And that's what they're after attention from you. Because you have the goods, they don't. So I'm leaving you with that. When you're in their presence, be totally aware. As soon as everything starts going off on the inside, do not ignore it. Become totally aware. Become totally aware and get involved in that moment. Get involved. Drop everything that you would think about, whatever. Be in the moment, in that moment, and say, how am I going to deal with this? I got to deal with this now. And practice makes perfect. You will. You'll find a way. Because God is always consistently looking to change and to empower those who can actually destroy the devil's works. Have a good day.